Thank you. All right. I am thrilled to be here, even for the one person when Tiffany said, does anybody here know Mark? And I heard somebody saying, yeah. So thank you for whoever that was. We'll have words after, I'm sure. I am excited to talk to you about leading because right now it is a tough time to be a leader. This is a time in the beverage industry that I don't have to repeat to you, but I will because I just want us to be all on the same page. There are tariffs that are going to be making it hard for us to figure out how do we even make a cocktail that doesn't have the drink that we need, the spirit we need. There are demographic shifts where people aren't drinking the same way they used to. There are costs with what do you call the stuff where things are more expensive? Inflation, thank you. Okay, this is good. This is good. I had a good time last night too. So there's inflation that's making it so as I was talking to you all, sometimes people are saying, I'm paying for eggs. I don't know if I can pay for a cocktail as well. There's a lot of different changes that are going on. In the research that my firm has been able to do, we studied a whole bunch of CEOs, over 1,000 CEOs, to ask them all sorts of different stuff about leadership. 20% said that they had they were confident in their ability to lead. 1 out of 5 CEOs. 10% said they had no confidence at all in their ability to lead. These are people that are hired to be a CEO, that are paid to be a CEO. They're adults that accepted that job description. I will lead this organization. And they're sitting there thinking, I got nothing. I'm the wrong person for this position. Change that to a volunteer position and wonder where the confidence goes. Oftentimes we volunteer for organizations that we respect and love and are dear to us in areas that are not our areas of expertise. We have no clue how to keep our own books, let alone be a treasurer of a chapter. We don't really know how to outreach to other people that aren't coming to us. There's all sorts of areas where doubt can come in. And the weird thing about leadership is that we think there must be a map, but nobody's told us what it is. If you've been promoted, how many of you have been promoted to leadership in a paid position? Some level of leadership. Okay. Wow, that is more than I expected. Leadership from the Conquer Leadership Group definition is influence. If you help anybody make a decision, you're in a position of leadership. You're helping them lead. So it doesn't have to be a paid position, a place of position. But the map, when you see other people doing the job that you're doing, they seem to have it all together. They totally seem to have it figured out. And you're so aware of how much you don't know, of how much you have to learn. But people are confidently kind of going about their business, and it's like you missed the manual. Somebody had an orientation that I didn't get invited to. So that causes doubt to grow even more, and we don't know who to call. Although in USBG, we call more. There's a more openness to helping each other here than I've seen in other organizations. But oftentimes you don't know who to call because in our culture in this country, weakness is seen as bad, and not knowing the answers is seen as weakness. So it's a vulnerability to call someone, and it's also it could cause the people that put you in a position of leadership to wonder, did we choose the wrong person? So we kind of keep it bottled up, and we keep it inside. I'm here to tell you there is a map for leadership. We're going to go through the 4 stages of leadership. We're going to look at some of the areas where your authenticity as a person can be your greatest gift, where your authenticity as a chapter or team can also be that gift. And then we're going to look at some things that you are already doing as bartenders and beverage industry professionals that can help you accomplish some of the goals you want to do. And then we're going to continue drinking the wonderful spirits from our sponsors. Awesome. Well, I will not. If somebody could save one for me, that would be great. The map that we use for leadership is, if you had a 4-quadrant sort of process template, the axis that's vertical is confidence to unsure. You start out at a high point of confidence, and at some point you lack that confidence. And the horizontal axis is your inputs. Are you getting your inputs from an external source or an internal source? Now, none of us really know this when we start out in leadership. Most of us only experience about half of the entire map. Gio, let's a round of applause for Gio, please. Thank you very much. That's the carrot for when I'm done in 50 minutes. So when we start out in a position of leadership, whether we're placed in that position or we're elected to it in a volunteer capacity, we start out in the highest confidence that we tend to have. We have confidence in ourselves. Some of us are like, yeah, I've known that I'm a leader. I'm so glad people finally respect that in me. Other people are not confident at all, but they're figuring, somebody saw this in me, maybe I can do this. And what we do in this quadrant is we just start copying people. It's sort of like if you've seen, I heard, is Bradley in the room? Okay, there he is. I heard him on the Bartenders podcast say that he kind of snickered when he went into an early job of his in his career where the bartender had cocktail tools. And now he's that guy because he's developed into a different type of bartender. But maybe you saw that you had a manager that had a bow tie at some point in their career. And so you figure, I have to have a bow tie now because I've got this leadership role. And you don't really think about the fact that you're putting it on over a t-shirt, or you're not using a mirror, so it may not turn out right. But you go along with this bow tie thinking, okay, now I'm a leader. I've got the trappings of leadership. A standard way that I see this play out continually in teams is with introvert managers that follow extrovert managers. Extroverts pal around, they have this they love management by walking around, high fives to people, they get all this energy from chaos. If things are too orderly, an extrovert will often poke the bear and create chaos on their own. Introverts tend to like order. They tend to like a little bit of predictability. They like to know what they're expecting. And when an introvert goes into a setting and tries to copy being an extrovert, it can feel forced. No matter how social the introvert is, it can feel weird. But all we have in this level is we have the people to follow our parents, good or bad, teachers, athletic coaches, maybe early bosses that we've had. So we go and we do our leadership thing and we try to fit into somebody else's clothes for leadership, and people don't respond the way we want them to or we expect them to. They don't respond like they did for the previous leader. So our confidence goes down and we move into the second quadrant, which is the experiment quadrant. We're still looking externally for our cues. The primary question in quadrant 2 is, why am I so broken? What is so wrong with me? Why can't I get this right? So we lurch from educational opportunity to educational opportunity. We get certifications, we listen to podcasts, we come to conferences, all good things. But they're motivated by this deep-seated doubt of, I am the wrong person for this, or I don't have this figured out. People can spend their entire career in quadrant 2. They look like they're progressing with confidence. People see them and keep promoting them and giving them greater authority, and they have greater influence. But they know the whole time that they're faking it as they go. They're worried that someone's going to peek behind the curtain and realize, you're just making this stuff up. You have no plan. I've been working with leaders across the world for 21 years, and here's some good news. We are all just making this up. That is what we do on this planet. There was a point when my kids were, just before they went into college, I called my dad up and I said, Dad, I didn't even say Dad, I just called him. He said, hello. I said, were you just making this up as you went along? And it wasn't a judgment. It wasn't like, you screwed me up. It wasn't that at all. It was just a sincere being seen. So I said, were you just making this up the whole time? There was a pause. And then he started laughing. So of course I was. I'd never had a teenage son. I didn't know what I was doing. All this. I was the age where my dad seemed to have all the answers figured out. He was successful in business, successful in community. Our family was working well together. And that just felt like I should know what's going on. I didn't know how I was going to put my kids through college. I was feeling so inadequate. And so many of us spend our entire career here. The doubt just overwhelms us and builds up in us, and we do good things. But some of us are able to have the doubt unfold the other half of the map, where we start listening to the internal things, We start listening to the things that were drummed out of us in school. Don't listen to your feelings. Don't listen to your emotions. The wisdom source of our head is what's celebrated in our culture, but not our heart and our body. And so when the doubt becomes so overwhelming, sometimes you just get frustrated with, why am I so broken? And we allow ourselves to entertain the question, what if I'm exactly what this position needs? What if my perspective is something that adds to the conversation? We stop trying to fake and be like everybody else. We can be ourselves. This is a fabulous place to be. Quadrant 3 is where so much discovery happens, and it's never ending because we learn the language to describe ourselves in ways that aren't excuses for not fulfilling things that we promised to do. The externals are still good. There are still right ways to make cocktails. There are still helpful ways to serve people. There are still good ways to run meetings. But we start learning to do it in our own terms and in our own style. This, as we start doing this in the analyze quadrant, we start getting that confidence back because we're being authentic and true to ourselves. We start realizing those things that we thought were broken parts were maybe just quirks that are actually kind of fun and bring joy to other people in our life. And as we go through that, our confidence rises and we move back up to the quadrant 4, which I call the focus quadrant. It's not that this is nirvana. It's not that this is no problems ever again. We're all blissfully wonderful. We're on a planet with billions of human beings, of which we're one. There are going to be problems. There are going to be a lot of problems. But what's nice about the focus quadrant is you've got the map. You now know, do I need to copy somebody? Do I need to look for somebody to help me do what I need to do? Or do I need to take some lessons? Do I need to do a certification? Do I need to go to a conference? Do I need to go to an event or get a degree? Or, I keep not hitting it here. Why? Like just last year, I found out I was off the charts ADHD. Any of my fellow neurodivergents in here? Yeah. It was kind of a shocker after 5 decades on the planet to realize, oh, okay, that explains a lot. That wasn't being helped out here, but in quadrant 3, we can learn that. This is also really good for teams. In teams, you can look at, let's say chapters. We'll think of a USBG chapter. This could work in your companies or in your staffs as well. As a chapter, you might start just copying what you see other chapters do. You have a list of obligations and you start copying what they do. And those don't always respond the same way to your neighbors or to the people that you serve. And so your confidence goes down as a chapter or as a team, and you start trying to figure out, how do we fix this? What is wrong with us? Why are we lacking? Why do we always seem to fall apart? Why do we keep burning out our leaders? The negative questions. We are coded for negativity. So as human beings, it has served us very well in the propagation of our species to be negative. When a bear was coming at us, it was good not to wait to then wonder, I wonder if it wants to give me a hug. Or if it wants me for lunch. It has served us well. It doesn't serve us so well now because when anything happens to us, change or anything, we immediately go negative and start complaining. And so in quadrant 2, that part also how happens because we're so full of what we're not doing. But some teams move beyond that and they start wondering, you know what? Maybe we're not the problem. We are the bar. Okay, just. So maybe they go into the quadrant 3, and some teams say, maybe we're not the problem. We are the bar. Okay. So what I want to do thank you. What I want to do for the rest of the time is I want to look at some of the places in the analyze step that can move our doubt to direction. What are ways that we can start processing for ourselves as individuals and for the teams that we're with? And then we'll work through some conversation things that could help put those out when you leave here and practice it at the conference, and also when you go out and back to the places that you serve. But the analyze step, because it's so magical, we have this, it's magical, but we use a Venn diagram to describe it. That's not magical. I wish, and if anybody knows how to do this, I'd love it to get orbs that are always moving and interchanging because life isn't static. Life is always moving and undulating. And this diagram is just a poor copy of what happens in real life, but it seems to work. The three big areas where people enter into this analyze stage are their hardwiring. They start figuring out, how do we process things differently naturally? Their identity. What is the story that we're telling ourselves, or the story that we're telling our team tells? And then our goals. How are we measuring success? What are the markers that we put for success? One of the biggest conflicts on teams is when individuals in the team have different markers of success. So one person thinks they're winning and the team is doing well, and the other person thinks, this is awful. This isn't working at all. Where those overlap, it's your personal style, how you show up, or how your organizational style could be how your organization shows up, your mission, sort of why you're here on the planet taking up space, and your values. Values are so important. Values are like an iceberg. We are like the iceberg, and the values are the part that's under the water. There's so much about our decision-making process that is predicated on the values we hold, and so often in our culture, we don't think about what our values are. They're so close to us that, well, those of you that are wearing glasses, have you ever looked for your glasses while they're right there on your face? Ever gone to scratch your eye and hit your glass pane? Yeah, okay. Our values are like that too. There are some times where people prize independence and they don't get why they don't work well with teams. They prize independence. They don't want to work with teams. Other people love teamwork and can't understand why some people just don't want to be part of the whole. They want to be individual. And those values can be a really interesting gateway to quadrant 3. When these are all together, I call it integrity. And it's not a moral high ground of any kind. It's integration. It's when you are walking through life knowing that all your parts are integrated together. You know why you're doing the things you're doing. You may not know what the path is entirely clear, but you know how you're going to approach the things that come your way. Your team knows this is how we operate in this space or in the neighborhood that we're in. That's quadrant 3. Let's look at take a look at hardwiring. For individual hardwiring, there are ability hardwiring, there's behaviors hardwiring, and there's a motivational hardwiring. The abilities hardwiring is very much what comes naturally to you. Has anybody here taken the Highlands Abilities Assessment? You have? Awesome. There are a bunch of stupid tasks that you're asked to complete under time pressure. And it's really frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. My mom took it when I was being certified in this, and she said, I felt more mentally alert after 36 hours of labor with you and nothing to show for it than I did after this 3-hour test. But what it does objectively is it just tells you, yeah, you did this one well, you did this well, you didn't do that well. It's really good to know what comes naturally to us, because then we can also learn where do we need to have our skills. One of the things when I took Highlands, I learned that I have high rhythm memory. That does not mean I'll be a good drummer, alas. But it does mean that I need to move around. I was not built for a desk job. And so knowing that at an early stage in my career, I was able to start not seeing that as a failing, but just know when I was looking for positions that I needed to have some element of travel built in. Behaviors, has anybody done a DISC assessment? Okay, a bunch of you know DISC. All right, DISC is another 4-quadrant thing where there's assertive and reserved, or extrovert and introvert, task-centered, people-centered. It goes back to the ancient Greeks. They noticed that people kind of are quirky and weird, but they thought it was in 4 different ways, and they thought we had different fluids in our system. Some had a little bit too much phlegm, some had a little too much sanguine, some had a little too much caloric, and some had a little too much melancholy. Why I like behavior hardwiring is just you can observe that. You don't know what people do naturally well. You don't know why they do it. You can see, that person talks a little quickly. Maybe I should talk a little bit more quickly to meet up with them. Or, that person actually thinks before they speak. Wonder what that's like. Maybe I can do that too. The last one is the most fun one. How many people here are familiar with the Enneagram? Just a few? Okay. There are different motivations for why we do the behaviors we do and how we work together with the abilities that we have. And the motivations is where you get into the story of you. which I really love. Enneagram, I won't go into the session here, but the Enneagram basically is a 9-type personality theory that posits that we, at a very early age, learn that the world is not safe. This is not a safe place to be. And then we develop one of 9 typical stories to protect ourselves and to be safe in the world and successful. Unfortunately, that armor then becomes a jail cell for us. It serves us only to a point, and then it traps us. And so what I love about the Enneagram is that it doesn't allow you to stay put. It helps you grow. As you as a person start thinking about some of the ways that you are hardwired, it gives you objective language to talk about things that are really personal. Instead of saying something that could sound like a personal slur or insult to somebody else, you might say, wow, you seem to be really quick to speak. As opposed to, you don't think about things at all, do you? Verbal extroverts, just for a tip for you all, extroverts do their thinking by speaking, typically. It's called verbal processing, and my wife and I are celebrating 30 years of marriage this month. Thank you. She is a saint. It took me 3 years to realize, to grow up a lot. But part of it was I would say stuff and have my decision made as a verbal processor, and she's an introvert, and she would be like, I don't know what just happened here. So she learned to say, did you make a decision, or are you still verbally processing? Weird thing after 30 years of, any of you that have lived on the planet with people for a while, they shift. And now you know what? She's verbally processing. So confusing. I don't know what to do. Because I learned that her word was her word. So we all are growing in influx. But as you learn this, you get language to be able to talk about how you're in different, and also what skill sets you add to the team. Sometimes you need someone that's kind of a fire starter and really good at kicking things off. Other times you need people that are better at seeing projects through. And so knowing that in a non-critical way can be really helpful for your personal hardwiring. For your team, you could look at what is your chapter, or what is your department, or what is your staff, what do they seem to do well? Who are the people they seem to respond to well? What are some of the actions or the things that inspire action? I've been coaching, I've just started 2 executive coaching appointments in the last 2 weeks. Both of them are with people that say, I do great things when crisis hits. I don't like planning ahead. I'm not really good at that. But when there's a deadline, I respond and I rise to the challenge. That is something to know about them, because we don't want to get to the part where there's a crisis. But what are some ways that we can build some deadlines in or some other externals in so that they can be their best selves? And that could be with your team as well. Your hardwiring is really part of the basis of what makes up your identity, which is your stories. When it comes to stories, I have stock stories. In college, I was the woman who's now my wife, Emily. I was walking across campus with her, and my roommate rolled his eyes and gave a big sigh. Ugh. And we looked at him and said, Dan, what? He said, oh, that's one of Marc's stock stories. Looked at Emily and said, if you stick around with him a lot, you're going to hear this one all the time. And he was right. I just asked him last year. He said, do you remember saying that? He doesn't at all. But the stock stories are the ones that you're going to use in the summit to introduce yourself. It helps people kind of get a context. It helps you. How do you present? How do you want people to think of you? There are going to be stories about your past, stories about the way you interacted with Battleship last night. I didn't know there was Battleship. Did you guys know that? Oh, okay. A bunch of you did. Darn. All right. Thanks for holding out on us. That's great. Lisa and I had fun with Jenga. That was fun. But those are the stories that you go to. Your go-to stories are the ones that you tell about yourself. The other ones are the ones that are happening inside your head or inside your heart. These are like your library card catalog, or maybe the Google for the 21st century. Your subconscious, the people that study your subconscious say that your subconscious's job is to prove you right. Whatever you put into it, it's to say, you got this. You're absolutely right. One I've already heard a number of times here. I can remember drinks really well, but I can't remember their name. Your subconscious is going, oh, that's right. Look at all the times you screwed up names. Oh, boy, yeah, you go. You've got yourself figured out. That can be what's going on in your head, but you get a chance to reflect on that and say, are these stories continuing to help me? Do they serve me still? And if they don't, you get a chance to try to reprogram. For me, it was names and faces. I knew faces, I didn't remember names. And so I just started saying, you know what? I'm getting better at names. I can remember faces, I'm getting better at names. And apparently my subconscious started doing a little, well, there was that time 20 years ago that you kind of remembered a name. Now, and we started building up some more case evidence for that. So as you just hear yourself in your conversations throughout the rest of the next 3 days, listen to some of the stock stories and listen to the stories you're telling yourself about people that walk by you or about experiences that you have. And think about, what does that work for your team? What are the stories you're always telling yourself, your team? Is it, we can't ever get anything together, we can't ever get anything off the ground, we just get momentum and then there's a pandemic, or we just get momentum and then there's an economic downturn? And it may be factually true that those are the things that are happening, but it could also be that you're in a building year, that you seem to always get, no matter what happens, you seem to get people around the table that want to further education of bartenders in their community. It could be that. You get to choose. And I'm going to tell you the one that's the most important one, and I hope you continue practicing this, because we've already heard it from Tiffany, heard it from Ingrid, heard it from Darian, heard it from Travis. What is your USBG story? How many people here would like to see the USBG grow and become a real force in the country? All right, the rest of you will by the end. What is your USBG story? Many of us think when we're in positional authority or in volunteer authority that we have to have all the answers. And the answers aren't actually what makes us engaging or interesting. It's having, for you, it's your story, knowing that USBG changed your life, knowing that, like Tiffany was saying, I grew up in this industry because of USBG. Ingrid saying, I have a job that I have now because of this, and was in a totally different industry before. Those are the stories that are going to impact the enthusiasts and the other bartenders in your communities that are going to say, I haven't heard about USBG, but dang, I wonder if I could see myself doing that. That could be really cool. So practice it. I'd love to hear, and if you want to see me afterwards, I'm here through Wednesday. So I'd love to hear some of your USBG stories, because this is a very cool organization. I've heard people say that this is the only place other than drama, kids, theater camp, that I had friends that got me and I didn't have to explain myself. It's the only place where I could be all of me and not have to minimize parts of me. Maybe that's your story too. For others of you, this is where I finally got my family off my back. They stopped saying, when are you going to get a real job? And I said, well, I'm part of the United States Bartenders Guild. What more do you want? Oh, okay, that's legit. I've heard others of you that are leaders in the chapter say that. They said, no one knows what it means, but it gives me expertise and authority in my community when I speak, because people know I'm part of USBG. So be thinking about the stories, and those will help you take the doubt that you're experiencing and give direction to where you're going to go and where your team is going to go. And then the last one is goals for yourself and your team. How do you define personal success? Is it the tips and the money you make? Is it the certifications or the education that you have? Not value judgments, just being clear on how are you measuring success. Because once you're clear, then you can say, does this serve me or not? For me, I know income is one of the things I do. If I were serving and I had a good tip night, that would probably be I would probably get a big dopamine hit out of that. And I'd be able to pay off some bills, which would be nice. But there could be education. And you're not really tips, whatever, but I want to get another certification. I want to finish the Cicerone, or I want to do the WSET. Is that right, Liz? All right. Napa Valley, yes. You're welcome. Well, how about your team or your chapter? How do you all define success? Is it the events that you hold? Or is it the people, the revenue that your membership makes or the events make? Or is it the membership numbers? This could be a huge place of conflict. And it's not right or wrong again. One chapter in here that I talked to, their event schedule is going nuts right now. They're doing great events and nobody is showing up. Well, the board is. So it's the same 4 people that are also lugging everything in and breaking it down after. But for their schedule, what they need is they want to build a calendar where people can go to their website and see, wow, they do a lot of events. Later on, they'll figure out, and they're already trying to figure out, how do we get people to come to this too? But you might look at your goals and say, who are we serving? I've heard from a number of people in my time with the USBG is that it seems like the craft cocktail bartenders guild, not the United States Bartenders Guild. And I've heard leaders here say, we are leaving out dive bars, we're leaving out sommeliers, we're leaving out catering staff, we're leaving out craft beer. Let alone, strip clubs. Okay, I'll take your word for it. 30 years of marriage next weekend, and I want to still make it. But we're leaving out all these other people that could be benefiting from the professional networking, that in a sector that's going through so much change where there are going to be restaurants closing, bartenders could still have jobs because the people in this room could connect them to the others. And what was the category that I might have just left out? What? Okay, corporate bartenders. What about non-bartender members? Enthusiasts. Yeah, we heard Ingrid, the board chair of the USBG, isn't it? Sorry, national president. Sorry, Madam President. But the enthusiasts can also be not to water down USBG's mission, but to build it up. So many people have been in the service industry and have a great affection for the bartenders and for their experience in it, and would love to have more bartenders be educated. So there's all sorts of different ways of tracking your goals. Getting clear on them can have help. When we did the survey with the CEOs, we said, do you have a strategic plan? Something like 87% said they did. When we said, do you have it in writing? It dropped to 60%. Yeah. And we had people saying, oh, no wonder this job is so confusing. Because it's all in his head, and everybody else at the meeting has their own strategic plan in their head. So get some clarity on this. Maybe this is something you could do when you talk in your regions. Want to show how your conversations that you're having will help you. Is it all right if we talk about how to build membership and how to build fundraising in your chapters? This also applies to sales. So anybody else that's not into like chapter stuff right now, this works in your work life as well. One of the greatest gifts of learning to grow in leadership, like the work that you do in USBG, is 100% transferable to your job, to your community, to other areas. So you might be able to build up your resume. If you want something else out of your job, you might get to test it out in your leadership, in your chapter, or on the national boards and the different committees that exist. When we think about influence, there are conversations are the best way that we influence people, and there are 4 cornerstones for that. You're going to love this, because what we're going to go through in the next few slides is what you do every day in your work. So the first cornerstone of conversational excellence is the worst time to be thinking about what you're saying is in the moment when you're saying it. Recent study that's just coming out this summer showed that 87% of working Americans expected their leaders to put in some preparation before they spoke to employees. 85% of working Americans expected to hold their leaders up to a higher standard in conversations than to their peers. This is hard because most of us come from the peers. We're used to doing what we do, and then we move into a different level of leadership, and the game has changed. It's almost like we were playing Settlers of Catan, and now everybody's playing Herd. The board doesn't matter at all. What's going on? And there's a lot more swears. I don't know what the fuck is happening. So the worst time to think about it is what you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. The next is curiosity as a fuel for conversations. This is a leadership gift. Most of the time in our schooling and in our early career, having the answers is what gets us promoted and gets us to see the next best thing. In leadership, you increasingly don't have the answers. You kind of have to intuit where the direction is. And curiosity is the fuel for that. What is beautiful about that from an interpersonal perspective is that you actually are listening to other people. You're hearing what they're saying. You're discovering what their story is or why they answer questions the way they do. It's not that you're saying, all right, Mike, why do you say it like that? That's not curiosity. So some of us have to get the chip off our shoulder. But I never thought of it that way, Mike. Why do you say, can I hug your body? That seems like weird to me. It is weird. That's why, but see, he said it is weird, and that's why I say it that way. It's to make that consent conversation happen in a way that's playful and not pedantic, and serious and intentional. So curiosity is where if you can just maintain curiosity, your leadership skills will grow, and you'll be actually able to direct things through unclear paths in a much, much better way. The third cornerstone is that the person asking the questions actually is controlling the conversation. Have you ever been serving at a bar and had somebody that just wouldn't stop asking stupid questions? Bo is like, yeah, at a bar, not at a bar guild, right? Bar, okay. That person is in control, but if you take back the reins by asking questions, as a bartender, you might also move or go on break or have somebody else come in. But when you're thinking of the questions that you can ask, it's a lot easier to remember 3 or 4 questions that you're going to ask people than it is to remember all the answers you think you're supposed to know. And the fourth cornerstone is that, and this one blows me away, that CEOs of multinational corporations forget this too. People do things for their own reasons, not yours. No one's going to join your chapter because you want to grow a membership. If you ask, more people will join, yes. But if you go through this process of learning to ask good questions with curiosity, you will lead people, you'll find out what their why is, what their context is, what they're looking to get done. And then you'll be able to ask in a way that's much more fine-tuned for them as a person. See, when we think about, sales or fundraising, but it also works for membership, so many people say, if I had more opportunities, if more people were coming to me, I'd be able to help them take action. I almost said get action, and then I realized in this group that may not be a good thing. But take action, yeah. Sorry, I didn't ask for consent. I apologize. That was bad. So the opportunities, if they just come to me, people aren't coming to me. The people that we want to join aren't coming to our events. That puts you at the mercy of everybody else's actions. The good news is this is actually a 5-step dance, and that's like step 4 and 5. If we move back up the ladder, we start with questions. The questions we ask could lead to conversations. Those conversations could lead to relationships. And those relationships could lead to opportunity that lead to action. So the questions that we're asking people around us, the questions that we're asking each other, are the things that are going to help us fuel how we communicate more effectively with people. Let me ask you, what questions, when you're talking to people about USBG, maybe when you're going to the after-hours parties and talking to the people that are attending bar, or you're in your communities, what kind of questions do you tend to ask people? How are you? Nice. Where do you work? Even if you're at their place of business? Okay, great. That's true, because they maybe just be cashing it, mailing it in right there. I actually work over there around the corner. I don't work here at all. I just hop behind the bar. I love it. What other questions do you ask? What's that? Oh, I thought that was a question. How long have you worked here, or how long in the business? Yeah, I like that question a lot. Do you like where you work? That could get salty, yeah. What's your favorite thing about what you do here? Awesome. Any other questions? Nigel, what do you ask?
Depending on how well I know, what their goal is in their career. There's some people who are just there for the summer, there's some people who are like, this is my stepping stone to something larger.
What their goal is in their career, because some people are just here for the summer, and some people are, this is a stepping stone to something larger. That's an insightful question. Yes? Ooh, the ethos of the bar program and the bar in general?
Sort of the last point is their favorite drink to make. Because then I start a conversation about what they like.
What is your favorite drink to make? Okay. Yes.
What's important to them and how they make decisions?
What's important to them and how they make decisions?
I'm
Amanda?
trying to be better when I'm out at other people's bars, if I don't know the bartender, of saying, have you heard of the USBG?
Have you heard of the USBG? All right, these are all great. I love doing that too, and I got stuck in Phoenix. I said, have you heard of the USBG? And the Phoenix bartender said, yeah, I'm not an idiot. I didn't know what to do then, but just finish my burger and my beer. Now I know because I've talked to Bo. What's the next question I could ask? Are you a member? Okay, that would have been a good one. Fair. I could have also asked, are you a guild house? See? Yeah. Ingrid, what were you going to say?
I was going to say,
What's your name? Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. That'll bring us to what I would love to, when I'm teaching this, I love to just have people start with simple questions. When we ask, what's your purpose? What's your meaning? What is your plan for your life? That is starting really far down, and we might not have built that trust. And we're putting that other person on the spot of, I don't know what the right answer is. I maybe haven't done all that homework. I didn't know there was a test. Or I don't know who you are. And I don't know how you're going to respond to the fact that I have a vision for my life and it may not correspond with who you are. So working with simple, playful questions are great. Like Ingrid's, what is your name? People tend to know that. They tend to. So that's a lighter lift. Do you like working here? What's your favorite cocktail? I love that. There are certain questions that you could ask. What are some more questions in that vein?
You could say, like, give me a hot take.
Ooh, give me a hot take. Because they'll know the answer. They'll know what irritates them or what's hot. Yeah.
Where do you go after work?
Where do you go after work?
Very common question in the industry is like, so what do you think of Casamigos?
So, what do you think of Casamigos? See? Do you see how that's a simple question? You all had a familiarity with it, and it will lead to another further conversation. The thing with questions is building stacks. When I'm at a social setting, and some of you have already heard me say this, I love to ask the first question, what do you do when you're not here? Somebody already said sleep. The thing about what do you do when you're not here predicates that it doesn't have to be work related. It can be anything. You get hobbies, you get interests, you get work, you get all sorts of stuff. I always follow that up with, or often follow that up with, how'd you get into that? And I get to hear wonderful stories and just learn so much about life and people's experience. And it kind of arms me so whenever I'm going into a random cocktail situation or reception, I can say, like, what do you do when you're not at this buffet line? What do you do when you're not standing waiting for the charter bus to move? Any of those things, it can be, having those set questions can be helpful. The ones that I played with were, are you a bourbon person or a beer person? Clearly, I'm looking at myself because I'm both. So that was all, that's all I had. But if you ask that, asking people what are your, like a one or either or question, lightens the load on them to have an answer. Oh, I'm not that, I'm this. So if I had said, well, I'm a bourbon person, you might ask, well, are you a Blade and Bow? Are you a New Riff, Douglas and Todd, Trails End? You wouldn't, because that's far too much. But I wanted to make sure that Diageo, Heineken Distillers, Phillips Distilling, and New Riff got a round of applause. Thank you for sponsoring. Thank you for being... Thank you for all of our sponsors and all of our exhibitors as well. So you might want to choose two of those. That might be a little bit better. And then the one that I heard on Bartender's podcast was, hey, what's the favorite shift you've ever worked? That is a deeper down question, but it is an easy answer because people know it. They know their shift, and you probably do too. And I think that's probably people that have worked in the industry. I don't think I could get away with that because I don't have that same lived experience to be able to meet them in their enjoyment of their shift. So the thing is, with these questions, as you're asking the questions, they may lead to relationships. They may lead to conversations. Some of you are going to have to realize, I don't want to have a conversation with that person, so you're going to stop asking questions. But if you do, they may lead to relationships, and it's out of those relationships that you build in your bars and your communities and in the USBG that you're able to have the opportunities that lead to the actions that you want, whether it's funding, whether it's new members, or whether it's whatever it is that you're wanting to do, a new job. I would submit to you that the funding question, there are probably, brands have a lot of things going on, and they've been incredibly generous with USBG chapters and will continue to be, I know. I think there's a lot of enthusiasts who would get a kick out of having their accounting firm or their law firm or their auto mechanic shop sponsor your next event. And it doesn't seem to be something that I hear USBG leaders talking about. So some of your regulars that you might have other things that you do with, that might be a very legitimate question that you could just explore to them. What's the worst they can say? No, exactly. Ask without fear. If you don't ask, you don't know. So, remember the 4 cornerstones. Think about what you're going to say before you say it. Lead with curiosity. Not knowing does take a little bit of vulnerability, but it leads to so many different avenues of exploration and conversation. And you as a leader get to have the questions. If you don't like where the conversation's going, think of a question to ask them. What makes you say that? And try not to be like, what makes you say that? Idiot. That's not what you mean, but it should be more of a curiosity thing. And then try to find out what you want to do in some of these conversations. If you're trying to move them to a specific action, let's find out, what are their reasons? Like Nigel said, are they here just as a summer gig for them? Or do they see this as a stepping stone for something more? Do they even know that there could be a career in this? These are all parts of Quadrant 3 where we are working on that, accepting our awesomeness, learning to be authentic to ourselves, not at the dismissal of the externals, but at the authority that comes from being truly yourself, truly your team self, where your chapter can say, we are the bar. Why don't we say that? Would you all say that with me? 1, 2, 3. We are the bar. Yeah. You guys set the bar in your communities for what the service industry professional should be. And you get to network and help businesses and help others do that as well. As you go through the rest of your time at this conference, I want you to think about the map of leadership. Think about where you might want to be. Look at your agenda, look at the speakers, look at the people around you, and think about, are there people here I need to copy? My wife and I loved getting to see people that were about 10 years, 15 years further down the path than we were in the areas where we thought we wanted to go. And we'd interview them and say, how'd you do it? What do you wish you didn't do? Stuff like that. This is how weird we are. When we realized we were going to have a kid, we started noticing the teenagers in our life. And we liked some, shockingly. So we asked their parents, what did you do? You seem to have helped raise a really enjoyable mini adult human being. How did you do that? And we had some wonderful conversations with people. You might want to also look at, what are the sessions being offered? Do I want to go learn more about absinthe or Italian cocktails? Or maybe it's something about chapter leadership or ladders of engagement. Maybe this is something, this will help me in filling up what I don't know. Maybe it's going to the world class competition and thinking, I just would like to sit here and watch that, and I'm so glad it's not me up there. Or, I wonder if I could do that. And maybe you'll start doing some competitions in regions or locally in different ways that you do it. And maybe it's also walking through all of those things and thinking about, people seem to be getting these certain things similarly, and I have a different take, or our chapter has a different take. Or what that chapter is doing is good, but our chapter isn't there now. And owning that and being able to really celebrate that. And it could be, again, I know you're smart enough to know that this is about your job, it's about your chapter, it's about the restaurants and bars you work in. These are transferable skills that lead it all out. Because we could be truly broken, like we think we are in Quadrant 2. This could be, we might not have the answers, we might not be able to ever get better. But that doubt could push you in the direction of thinking, maybe we're on the verge of greatness. And I truly believe USBG is on the verge of greatness. There is a time and a place right now like no other for this industry to have somebody to stand for it and have you all to support each other. And there's a zeitgeist, there's an atmosphere of people that are willing to do that. And I'm so excited to help you all achieve that and see USBG really be the bar. Thank you.